Time for Checkpoint. My guests in studio this evening, joining us again, Professor Edward Kisiangani, who is to my immediate right. He's a political expert. And to my far right, Paul Achar, a speech coach and communications expert. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let us begin with what the week has been. And of course, all eyes have been fixated on the nominations, what happened, the fallout, and former nominated MP Rachel Shebesh and other ex-women MPs, they were livid with TNA denying Mary Wambui the party nomination to vie for the Othaya seat. Let's take a look at what Shebesh had to say.
Who entered the computer and removed Mary Wambui and put some funny man who does not know how to fight wars except by using money. Tell them to be very careful. IBC better know Kenya has changed and we have a new constitution. We are not fools. We are not sitting here like blondes, like we don't know what we are doing. These are not blondes, by the way. In case you thought these are blondes, these are not blondes. We are waiting. Midnight reaches, we have a next course of action, and we will stop IBC and it's the chair and all those commissioners from even conducting elections, because this is already a flawed system. They cannot remove a name that has been brought here by party.
She was not as bold just a few days later on KTN's Live Wire show with James Smart. Listen in. All right, we're going to play that clip in a short while. She got an unexpected phone call from IEBC Chairman Ahmed Isaka-san. I think we have that clip now. Let's take a look.
I had harrowing tales from the members of staff who were traumatized by Shebesh and her colleagues, and especially because one of the people who was accompanying you had with her armed police officers, security officers. And I think therefore, Shebesh, while I have a lot of respect for you, and I know that you are a very good role model for women and a very good MP, but I think your conduct that night was not good. You used very bad language as a leader. You have portrayed a very bad image for yourself and your party.
Doesn't seem like the same woman at all. I mean, one point she's just thumping, if you like. The other, these hands, a little nervousness.
It's extremely interesting. The first clip, we see her absolutely agitated, aggressive, and also using language which, you know, honestly is not really becoming of her office and her stature in society. When she calls this man, she makes certain allegations about this opponent, that he's a man who uses money to get his way. I mean, that's really, I think, hitting below the belt. Is it
that, you know, my question is it that she shouldn't say that because she's a woman? Because later on she goes on to explain the difficulties of being a woman and playing in the political arena, whereas we'd have allowed a man to, you know, it would have seemed okay if a man was talking that way.
It's not really an issue with her gender. I think the issue here is the allegation that she makes against this other challenger without really giving any evidence. And we see her, you know, pointing at the viewers. We see her really extremely agitated. And in a way, it portrays a bit of arrogance. And that automatically disconnects people.
Right.
You cannot be able to, you know, humility needs to be seen to be able to connect.
Does humility get things done realistically in Kenyan politics?
No, I think the bottom line is that when Shebesh presents herself at the Electoral Commission offices, so much is at stake, and she knows that a lot of things have gone wrong in her own party, and something has gone wrong, and she wants to set it right. What Shebesh did is she wanted to act normally, and that is really what when you get annoyed, she got her emotions out, and she was acting normally. She was not pretending. She is not a hypocrite. And again, after she achieves her objective, and she comes back to the studio, she's humbled, but she has achieved her objective. She didn't need to be so abrasive when she comes to the studio. She had already made her point, achieved her objective, and she was also living in normally.
Well, the point could have been made a better way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think she could have communicated a lot better. She could have said the same thing. She could have expressed her outrage in a different way.
You know, Paul, the problem is, I want us to be realistic with Kenyan politics, because what she goes on to say is this: by the time we were going to the IEBC offices, we had tried every other avenue. And the reality is Kenyan politics is not nice. Was there any other way she would have gotten it done without being abrasive and saying, you know what, for us, this is make or break?
Or would Wamboi get her ticket without this mess that you are talking about? She knows it is the ends that justify the means. The morality of what she did on national television gave her the ticket for Wamboi. That's what is important, and that's what she was talking about, politics.
To her credit, Paul, she apologized. Is it enough to save face?
I think there are a certain group of voters who are absolutely alienated with her communication, and then she also gives fodder for her opponent to run ads during the campaign. When she's pointing fingers and wagging a finger at everybody else, I would, if I was a challenger running in the general election March 4th, I have clips that I can be able to use for my ads against her.
Yes, but
right there.
But you must know that she also has her supporters.
True.
What we should focus on is that why did she lose her head? She lost her head because things were not going right. Now, who was she going to communicate with? She said she had gone everywhere and asked these people, why are you doing this? They did it. And she expected even the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission
Yes.
was expected. They had assured the public, and I read it somewhere in the media, that they were supposed to remain there for 24 hours. When they arrived there, the place is locked.
There were a bunch of junior officers who felt
who didn't know how to
harassed
communicate.
by that,
which is what, hold on one
second, which is what Ahmed Isaac Hassan says in the clip, that his officers felt harassed because one of the individuals in whose company she was came with armed guards. But the question is this, given that tomorrow IEBC is expected to be saying what it will do over the sort of sham that we saw in the nominations, do you think she is going to be the example that IEBC must come out and really assert itself to ensure that something similar does not happen again?
Well, I don't think we can speculate on the decision that the IEBC is going to take, but I would also have some issues with the tone within which the chairman of the IEBC spoke during that phone call. You know, he's speaking about something really serious, but he does not seem to convey the authority that should go with.
It sounds like he can be bullied?
Absolutely. You know, from that particular phone conversation. I'm not saying it's his fault. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I would have expected a lot more, a bit of authority in his voice.
Has IEBC been seen to be bullied?
I have the advantage. I listened to that tape, but I watched television when Rachel Shebesh was engaged in a conversation with the IEBC chairman. And I realized that the verdict tomorrow is that she will not be punished. There were 3 options. But one person asked, are you going to punish her and she goes out completely, she doesn't appear on the ballot? The chairman said no. So the problem is the chairman...
He didn't say no. He said he has 3 options.
Yes, he has 3.
And he's considering them.
Yeah. But I don't think from his tone he's going to punish Shebesh. First of all, you must know this. Shebesh has one quality that very many people don't have. She's very friendly to the cameras. And when she speaks her mind, even when she's making her mind in a rather uncouth manner, she recruits a lot of people on her side as an underdog. Look at how she was wearing. I think somebody has not even discussed that. The kind of dress code she had. I would look at the dress code she had at the IEBC is not the refined woman you saw. There she was on the street fighting for her own rights. So she really attracts a lot of people on her side. And I don't think that a lot of people will forgive her.
Let's contrast it, Paul. I'm so sorry, Paul. Let me cut you short because I want you to be able to contrast this against the next clip. Elizabeth Ongoro, this is what she had to say after she was bumped off in the race for Nairobi Senator in the ODM party by Bishop Margaret Wanjiru. Let's take a look.
Set the record straight so that those who are coming behind me will not suffer the same fate, and that some sanity may reign in those who are given positions of authority in political parties. I am first and foremost a Christian and then a politician. I do not intend to compromise my Christian ideals simply because I'm a Christian, I'm a politician. And that is really why I am not accepting to take another man's position. I am making a public statement that as a leader I have decided to put this county before my interests, and to put the country before my interests, and to put the candidature of my presidential candidate, the Prime Minister, before my interest.
Paul?
I mean, look at how she communicates something that's extremely difficult. You can see that she's utterly dejected. She looks really sad, and she's almost tearing up. Whatever happened to her, she talks about injustice, and her words and her body language actually do connect in the same, in that particular instance. And to be honest, if an election were probably to be held tomorrow after that clip had run, and she was running as an independent, I'm sure she would get a lot of sympathy votes from people who watched that clip and seemed to connect. But there's something else that she does. She pulls what I would call a master stroke in this one. She evokes faith as a reason or as a basis for her decision. What she's doing is she's focusing on a higher ideal, talking to an audience out there that she knows would connect with the whole issue of faith, evokes her faith.
Yeah, but she's
and
not
is able
intending to challenge that decision as well. So it may not have made sense for her to be so vehement on the point. But the question being, Professor, she should have seen it coming, don't you think, that she would have been sacrificed?
Let me just quickly say this. If you compare the two clips, I just want to say this, that Ongoro is also very natural. Two people should not be expected. There must not be a stereotype on how we want to communicate our emotions naturally. So she did it that way. She was soft. But the first one, which involves Shebesh, had a particular history behind it. That, in fact, the week running to that encounter, we had seen movements in Othaya. The public was already prepared to think that something is going to go wrong in Othaya against Wamboi. But when you come to Ongoro, we don't have a hindsight. She even has demonstrated a lot of respect for her own party, her own party leadership. She doesn't seem to have a problem with the Raila.
How is it, and I'm glad you said that, because how is it that in the entire sham of the nominations and the problems that we've seen, especially in ODM, that the Prime Minister has been able to distance himself from the blame? So people are willing to blame ODM, but not Raila. Is he playing his role as party leader to ensure that, you know, stuff in the party is running well? Does he not deserve some of the blame? Yeah,
he deserves some of the blame, but he played his games very tactfully, unlike Uhuru. Because what happened in Othaya, one senior member of the First Family went out and said, somebody has said, I talked to Uhuru and said, Huyu mtu wangu, help me to have this boy given this nomination. But Raila, although he had preferences, he never had a messenger conveying a similar message. So him, as a political operative, he was more tactical than Uhuru on the other side. So what Shebesh was exploiting was a history of miscalculations from the TNA side.
For me, it brings in the whole issue of temperament in leadership. Look, this is a lady who has won a nomination, has a certificate, and her certificate is given to somebody else. I would expect her to hit the roof, probably go crazy, but look at how she handles it, with dignity.
That was my point, that she already understands that she was going to be sacrificed in the first place. There was no way any party was going to allow one community to be seen to be dominating the politics of Nairobi. So already you have Elizabeth Ongoro running for senator, and then you have Evans Odhiambo Kidero again now running for governor. So there must have been some sort of ethnic balance. She should have seen it coming.
And I think that's, that's absolutely wrong. I mean, you cannot deny somebody what is rightfully theirs on the basis of ethnicity. I think that is something that does not have a place in the politics of this country. It may not be
morally right, but it does happen. It does happen, Paul. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Kenyan politics, unfortunately, is that number, is that game of ethnicity.
That is realistic. I don't want to live in this world, this paradise where people don't talk about issues. The issue is ethnicity is a big story.
But we're not glorifying it. We're not trying to glorify it here. I'm just saying that is the calculation that must be going on in political parties when they're trying to show a national image. You know, we are a national party.
What we should be blaming Ongoro, just a minute, what we should be blaming Ongoro is this. In the lineup for the nominations for CORD, and especially ODM, they should have known that a particular ethnicity was dominating. This Nairobi belongs to everybody. And therefore, it will raise eyebrows, definitely. But for her to complain after she has been locked out, when she knew that existed, this matter should have been handled before the nomination took place. So if they timed until she wins, and then they talk about it, even she talks about it, she doesn't deserve a lot of sympathy.
I've got a speech that, Paul, I know will love. I know you will love it. It's from Oburu Odinga. I must move, Paul. Just forgive me today. Time is really not on my side. Many apologies, but I know you like this one. Oburu Odinga, he went ahead to, resign to fate and give up his run for a nomination on the ODM ticket. Let's listen to what he had to say. I'm so sorry.
This is really something which I accept with a lot of reluctance, because I know that it has been prompted by a lot of pressure which has been placed on my brother, and a lot of pressure which has also been placed on me to accept to step down. And I want to state here that my stepping down from the position of contest for governorship of Siaya County does not mean that I'm not going to be an active member of ODM. I'm going to be a very, very active member of ODM, and I'm going to vigorously campaign for the presidency of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, who is my younger brother.
Pain and grace in conceding, something I think all the presidential contenders should learn, giving that kind of concession speech, because there can only be one winner.
No.
Paul.
I mean, it's an interesting way of looking at it, but I see someone whose body language does not agree with the decision that the party has taken. He's reading a statement which, honestly, he's been pushed. His back is up against the wall. There's nothing much he can do.
And
so
he admits it.
He has to do it. What I would have expected, though, for him, what I would have wanted him to elevate the level of his rhetoric a little higher by probably giving reasons, legitimate reasons as to why the decision was taken, and tying them into his own values. He could have probably said something like, due to the violence, due to the fact that this particular context was extremely divisive, I would have, I'm making this decision to bring together the county, and I ascribe to certain ideals of unity, and I would have also wanted him to condemn the violence that was there. But he makes it about pressure. We don't know which pressure from where. You
don't think every presidential contender right now should have a concession speech? Because I think there seems to be this thing with politicians, even with the party hopping that we saw in the nomination process. You're not ready to accept that at the end of the day, when you go to the vote, there are two possible outcomes, a win or a loss.
In fact, that's perfect right, Anne. People must consider defeat and we want to conduct fair and fair elections at any one point in our country. But one of the things that you have missed in this case of Oburu is that he's diverting attention to the wrong things. What he's supposed to say is, in Siaya was there fair election? Because that is the point. If there was no fair election, he should come and consider and say, I think they should have handled it this way by probably asking us to go back, or the IEBC should change the law, the parliament should change the law that when there's a problem like this, we go back to the election. If it is contested like mine, then we do a review and see who wins. But he doesn't seem to agree that there was any problem in Siaya. This is what he should address if he is a leader. He's diverting attention to pressure on his brother. But what about the fact that was he nominated?
And that's why I go back to this thing of Raila being, you may say tactfully or whichever word you want to use, has been able to avoid the sham. Everybody else has... Oburu, I think 2 weeks ago you had said that these are the people who need to be dropped from the Raila lineup. And of course they're not going to like it. And they're not going to legitimize it, but they say for the sake of our candidate, we want him to look good.
Yes,
will abandon our bid.
He's trying to use his brother as a basis for dropping out, and that is moralizing the election results that he was the winner. But because of pressure about his brother's candidature, that's why he's being pressurized. So he's saying, I'm being punished although I won. Did he win? Will Oburu tell you he won? He didn't win. There was no...
Well, we don't know that. No, it was shambolic.
But I think we need to introduce a culture of concession speaking after an election. We need to hear that, and we need to we need people to graciously concede defeat when they're defeated.
I know, Paul, you work with some of them behind the scenes. I hope you're prepping some speeches for them. Let me move to the last one. Prep some speeches for them. I humbly concede defeat.
I think it's part of democratic advancement. You need to be able to get to a place where when you lose, you give a gracious concession.
But
you call out.
Oburus was not a loss. He did not even.
We don't know that for. We do not know that for a fact. There were far too many things wrong with it. Professor, let me wind up with Kalonzo Musyoka. You do know, of course, Konza City was launched this past week by the president. Here's what Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka had to say. May be smart, may not be so smart remarks in regards to whom he hopes will not be residing near Konza.
Prices are shooting. People are getting one piece of land at about 1 million shillings. Tomorrow the prices will be 20 million. And people will be coming from every part of the country. I think there must be order. We cannot afford another Kibera in Konza. We cannot afford another slum, because we pride ourselves in hosting Africa's largest slum in the city of Nairobi.
You know, we understand the concept of Silicon Valley and what we're trying to achieve with Vision 2030 and all of that, but is he considerate enough of the fact that people who live in slums don't live there because they want to? They move near big cities because they're looking for opportunity.
Let me give the Vice President some marks on how he looked. He looked Vice Presidential, well-fitting jacket, a good tie, but his language, I have an issue with his language. When you're speaking as a Vice President of a nation, you must be really conscious of your language. When he talks about we don't want another Kibera, and the people who live in Kibera still citizens of this country, and you're the Vice President of those people who live in the suburbs, those people who live in the slums. So I think that he failed in his choice of language in this particular instance.
Does it smack of a leader who is out of touch with the people?
What I would expect is I would want an apology to the people who live in Kibera.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect him to do that. And
I differ a bit. Well, if you look at what the Vice President is saying, he's not abusing people from Kibera. He's not even celebrating their misery. But he's saying that we don't want another Kibera be created in Konza. And what he's saying
maybe
is that
the chuckle after saying Kibera wasn't helpful.
Kibera just represents failed leadership. That failed leadership has created slums like Kibera. I don't think the Vice President said anything that really hurts.
And he's been a leader for how many years in this country? So he may be part of that.
Maybe he's admitting
the language that words are not just words. Words of power. Words create our reality. And to be honest with you, that singling out a particular slum and saying Kibera, we don't want another Kibera here, that's alienating. The Vice President of this country must be aware that he's a Vice President not only...
And the policies of the government in which he was should have created jobs, should have helped boost the economy so that people do not have to live in such squalor conditions.
To that extent, I agree, Anne, that actually he's part of the leadership of this country for many years, so he should have done something else, something about it. But Kibera is just symbolic. It could have been Mathare, it could have been any other Kamukunji in a town in Eldoret.
I would have loved to hear what option Konza as a concept would create for the residents of that area generally, who are not IT experts.
I think that's, you use the best language. You should have used that. You should have talked about residents in the neighboring community as opposed to singling out slum dwellers. For heaven's sake,
let me just ask,
for heaven's sake.
What did he say that was bad, that really irritated you about Kibera? When you mention Kibera, how do you hurt people?
For me, I do have an issue when the Vice President of a country stands up in a context like that and singles out a particular slum. He should have talked about neighborhoods, so the people who will be living within this particular the neighborhood within Konza, but I do have
I think
a
it would
problem.
have been more helpful to talk about opportunity. That Konza City, yes, may attract the brightest minds we have in the world of IT, etc., will attract all these investors. But for those who do not have the skill base to work in Konza proper, then there will be these other options available. Because where are they going to go? No, let Prof tell us that. Where will they go?
No, these people, you know the concept. Do you know that they are very rich people in Kibera? If you have gone there, you see people with a lot of money. It's not talking about the fact that he's celebrating these people who are suffering. It's just saying we want to create a Konza city that is modern, where everybody can afford the basics of life and where they don't stay in slums. Everything, water is supplied, there is good infrastructure. He's not talking about Kibera because he's saying that place is for the downtrodden and they have nothing to do.
I think there's one thing I've learned, Prof, in this segment as we keep doing it. What you mean and what you say are two different things.
You know what?
Gentlemen, I have to thank
it's
you there.
when
I have to thank you there. You want to shake my hand? Go ahead. Paul, I think you'll have to suffice with a wave. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming every week. We certainly do appreciate it. We're taking a short break. I'm back with the sports.